I discovered that minimizing and money impact each other in really big ways. Let's hang out and talk about how. Hi, I'm Caitlin, recovering shopaholic turned financial coach, learning to see money God's way. I've still got a long way to go, so I hope you'll join me. So, if you've spent a lot of your life buying stuff you didn't actually need or use and then driven yourself crazy trying to manage all of it, you sound a lot like me. But minimizing has helped me in all aspects of my life, and specifically with money. The first step of this process for me was to recognize that I had a spending, buying, stuff problem, and then I could start to make necessary changes to do better. And disclaimer before we jump in, I'm going to be sharing some really embarrassing photos of my house that I took in the middle of minimizing everything, and I can only hope that they'll just make you feel a little better about your own life choices. Minimizing forced me to actually see all the stuff I was spending money on. And when I say see it, I mean I actually had to look at all of it. It was no longer hiding behind closed doors or in cabinets or in drawers. It was all staring me in the face. I felt like it was just piles and piles of proof that I'd been irresponsible and flippant for years. Okay, so I know I'm being dramatic, and I'm kind of saying it jokingly only to keep from crying, because seriously, I don't even want to know how much money I wasted. But that was the point. Seeing your stuff like that is really eye-opening. We live in a world where we have immediate access to so much stuff. And the reality for most of us is that we have way more than we could ever need. I kept buying, partly because I either didn't know what I had or I was too stressed to look for it. That's a clear indicator that I definitely had more than I was able to manage. Minimizing helped me to question how I spent and to be more intentional about money. Experiencing everything that comes along with minimizing my house was very necessary in order for me to question my purchases. I'm not proud to admit how often I bought stuff without ever thinking twice about it and without weighing the true cost of it. Almost every time I go to buy something now, I have flashbacks of the hordes of stuff that I've worked to eliminate for years, and I actually ask myself, is it worth finding a place for this in my home and managing it? I'm also able to be more intentional with my spending because I have a better sense of what I have, what's actually been useful for us, and what hasn't added any value and was just taking up space. I went from feeling this sense of guilt or just yuckiness after a lot of purchases to feeling much better about each one. Minimizing shifted my perspective about how I spend money. My perspective about money and stuff has been a bit off for most of my life. I don't think I realized how entitled I felt or how much I let my feelings affect how I used and spent money. The more I get rid of and commit to doing without, the more I realize how meaningless most of it is anyway. And I'm certainly not saying we need to get rid of everything and live with nothing to have a shift in perspective. I was surprised at how normal it had become for me to feel this constant unrest and overwhelm because I was surrounded by a ton of stuff that just didn't add value. My perspective about how I spend money has shifted from feeling like I have it to spend, so I should spend it, or from making excuses for why I can spend it. For example, oh, this would make my life so much easier. To feeling like I would rather have peace or see if I can live without it before I spend the money. My perspective now is that money isn't disposable and it equals hours of time. And I ask myself, how many hours did my husband have to work for this thing? I ask myself, does this have a specific place in our home? And feeling out of control in other areas of my life actually worsened when I tried to feel in control by spending money on stuff I didn't need. It hit me as I was going through my house how out of control my spending had actually become. So my perspective also shifted from when I spend, it's something I can control, to when I spend because of negative feelings, then I know I act out of control and without discipline. Minimizing made me realize how much more valuable time is than stuff. I got mad quite a few times when I was simplifying my house, and while I knew it was necessary and I couldn't live the rest of my life like that, I just kept beating myself up, thinking things like, If you didn't buy all this crap in the first place, you wouldn't be spending your entire life cleaning it all out. But what I really needed to do was forgive myself and take steps to make sure I never ended up in that place ever again. And from a practical standpoint, I acknowledged that I had to spend a ton of time in the minimizing process. But also, if you have 400 shirts and 250 toys in your house, you're going to spend a long time keeping it clean and organized. If you have half that, it takes half the time, right? And so I really do think now about how thankful I am when I'm tidying and cleaning, that I've eliminated so much. And I feel so much better about the time I spend resting and relaxing and just hanging out with my kids, because everything in my home is so much less overwhelming. And from a money standpoint, I needed to recognize how much more valuable time is than all the stuff. Not only did the money I was spending on the stuff equal lots and lots of hours of hard work, but the time I was slowly starting to get back by simplifying became way more valuable to me than anything I could ever buy. God loves you, and I believe God plus money can equal goodness and abundance in your life. And I hope to see you right here on my channel again soon.